Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto had been raised by Kakashi his entire life, and how would raising Naruto change Kakashi's life as well. Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel, and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard. Chapter 39, New Alliances. In Gato's head's quarters, one of his lieutenants was marching to the room that the ninja and the boy were using with a large group of hired killers as well. He had gathered up some of the worst types of people he could find as he wanted to make sure that this ninja was killed. They would have to rush him with the best killers he could find. They walked over to the door as their leader stopped. He was a bit nervous, after all he had heard the stories about this guy. "So, is he in there?" one of the new guys asked. "Yes, and be quick, the food we sent in was laced with a drug that should knock him out, but just in case he didn't take it we need to go in there and hack the big bastard down. Then we can deal with the boy on the bed as well once the big one is taken care of." The lieutenant told them. "Oh, come on, it's not like he's expecting this, and he's only one man," another said, grinning at the thought of an easy paycheck for this. The group's leader was about to make a comment on that, but he never got that far, as Zabuza's sword suddenly came through the door and right through the leader and two of the others, while cutting the arm off another. Cries of pain and death sounded as the door suddenly split open as Zabuza himself stormed out. He saw the shocked and surprised faces. That was good for him, he liked it when they were scared. He had noticed the drug in the food, only a genin wouldn't notice that kind of trick. Hell, he had used that trick before himself on certain targets when he couldn't get close, as did many in his line of work. So, he had been waiting for this. He had put a chair by the door waiting for the men to come. Once they were close enough, he would attack them first to throw them off, then it was a simple matter of hacking the rest to pieces. Which led to this moment as he swung his huge sword, throwing the bodies off the blade, and managed to cleave through a few more men. There were shouts and people yelling in total chaos. This was bad for them, but good for him. One man against a group was bad odds, but when that group was disoriented it turned the odds in his favor. "Come and meet your death," Zabuza yelled as he tore into the group. He showed no mercy as with his large sword gave him a long reach. A couple tried to get under his blade, but a punch here or a kick there to get rid of that problem. Sometimes he broke a rib or kicked a knee to bend in a way that wasn't meant for a human knee to bend. That caused more problems for them, as now they had men on the floor trying to get around the ones rolling on the ground in pain. Zabuza also had another thing to worry about. He had to cover the doorway in case someone got by him and tried to use Haku against him as a hostage. So, he didn't let it happen. He cut, sliced, hacked his enemies to pieces. The blood flowed and flew as the room was starting to be painted in the blood of his enemies, as he was being painted in the red blood as well, making him look every bit the demon that he was nicknamed. He could smell the fear in the air as their confidence dropped. That was when they were truly dead. When you thought you were going to die and didn't fight for survival, you were as good as dead, and he could sense that in them. Some of them started to run away for help, at least the smart ones did, the rest he finished off. By the time he was done, the place looked literally like hell itself. He was breathing a little hard and his arms started to ache, but years of using his sword had made him strong enough to have kept swinging for an hour. But he had little time now. He quickly went back into his room and got the chair he had been sitting on and threw it at the large window, breaking the glass. He went over to Haku's bed and, putting his sword on his back, he gently picked up the boy in his arms. Zabuza had taken care to prepare Haku for travel. He immobilized him as much as he could, wrapping the boy's arms to his chest and making sure the wound was tightly bonded up too. The boy moaned a bit in pain, and he was sorry for that, but they couldn't stay here anymore. He positioned him as best he could in his arms before jumping out the window and making his way to the only place he might be able to take Haku. Wave Village. Sakura wasn't sure what was going on, but there was something going on with two of her friends. Naruto and Hinata had been acting weird around each other for the past few days. Hinata would blush even more at the sight of Naruto, and he would look a little sheepish around her as well. Something was up, but when she pressed them for something they wouldn't say what exactly. It was frustrating not knowing, and so she took her frustrations out on her training. She had so far mastered the water walking, and was building up her chakra now, as controlling her chakra was something she had always been good at. She wanted to learn some more justice, and Kurenai was able to help her with refining her Genjustice skills, but she needed to learn a bit more. Mainly something more offensive would be helpful. Sakura had also taken to practicing with her Tonfas in the woods as well. After her last training session, she was tired, sweaty, and a certain tree now had pieces of the bark removed from all the hits. Her arms felt dead afterwards as she kept her wrist weights on, but it was good for her. She sighed as she sat on the ground taking a break and a nice cold drink from her canteen. She closed her eyes as she rested against the tree. All in all, this land wasn't bad, although she hoped that the village would recover. Every day she helped Tsunami with her shopping, and every day it broke a bit of her heart at seeing how the people lived. She still remembered that little girl that asked for food. Her body looked like the girl hadn't eaten much in days, and Sakura was most likely right. There was also another reason she was working so hard, mainly to try and not think about her own little problems. Mainly that she had given up on having more than a friendship with Naruto, and now the whole thing with Sasuke just left the girl feeling depressed. Maybe I should just focus more on my ninja life, Sakura sighed. Hell no. You can't give up now. I say we get stronger, and then Sasuke-kun will have to notice us. Inner Sakura told her. You think that might work? Well, if we can't ask him out, he didn't say anything about asking us out, her inner self said. To Sakura that actually made a little sense, but then she had no idea what Sasuke even liked. She remembered that rumor that he liked long hair, and nearly all the girls had grown it out, Ino being one of them. But Naruto had said he liked her hair the way it was, and she had liked him a bit back then too, plus Sasuke didn't seem interesting in long hair. Now that she thought about it, she couldn't remember any girl that caught his interests. Maybe we should ask for some help? From who though? Sakura thought about it. For relationship advice, maybe Kurenai would be nice. It would be good to get another female ninja's views on it. Plus, Sakura bet that Kurenai had to have a lot more experience in this given she was an adult. But who to ask what Sasuke liked? She couldn't go right up to him and ask because she doubted he would answer, and it would be pretty silly. Maybe Naruto would know? You think? Well, he and Sasuke train a lot together, and maybe because they're boys they would share or talk about girls. Sakura doubted it, but it wasn't like she had anything else to go on, and even though Naruto and Sasuke never seemed to get along, as far as she knew, Naruto was the closest thing to a friend that Sasuke had. As Sakura? Sakura was pulled out of her thoughts by the familiar stutter of her friend Hinata. She looked over to see the girl playing with her index fingers like she normally did. Hey, are you okay? Hinata asked, seeing Sakura's rather haggard look. Yeah, I'm just taking a break from training, Sakura told her. I really need to keep up with my teammates, and it's not easy. Sasuke-kun's like a natural, and with Naruto's stamina, and the way he works himself to death, I need to keep up, or I won't be any use to them. Hinata nodded, knowing what it was like to live up to high expectations. She sat down next to the other girl. They had known each other for years, and she and Ino were the only two girls that Hinata was friends with. It was nice to have some female company at times as well. So, what's going on with you and Naruto? Sakura asked as this was her chance to find out what was going on. Huh? Hinata blushed bright red. Oh, come on, you and him have been acting all weird and the others may not notice, but I have. So come on, what's going on? You two aren't fighting or anything, are you? And no, it's nothing like that, Hinata said quickly. Well, come on, you might feel better if you tell me. Sakura asked her nicely. Hinata thought about it. She hadn't really talked to someone, and keeping it all in wasn't really helping her either. She eventually broke and told the other girl what had happened on the roof. You two kissed. Sakura couldn't believe it. Sure, it was an accident, but she knew of Hinata's crush on Naruto, and the girl finally got her first kiss with him. The romantic side of her was going nuts with images of the two of them in a romantic setting. But it was an accident, we even talked about it. Hinata told her. Flashback. It was the morning after the kiss and both teens had been having trouble even looking the other in the eye. Hinata kept blushing more than usual when she locked eyes with him, and felt like fainting when she thought back to Naruto's mouth on hers. Her heart would skip several beats faster, and she couldn't look at him for too long before she felt like she couldn't take any more. Naruto was kind of the same as he blushed lightly thinking back on that day. Eventually it was just getting too much and Naruto managed to catch Hinata along at the end of the day. Hey Hinata-chan, can we talk? Naruto asked her. Sure, Hinata wasn't able to say more than that in fear that she wouldn't be able to talk anymore. Are you mad at me? He asked. Huh? I mean you won't look at me or even talk to me, so I figured that you were mad, Naruto said looking down. The last thing he wanted was for Hinata of all people mad at him, if she was mad that made it feel like he had just gotten kicked in the guts by a horse. And no. I'm not mad, Naruto-kun, really. She really didn't want him to think that she was mad at him. So then why have you been avoiding me? Naruto wondered. Well, it's just that, when we Hinata pushed her index fingers together trying to explain it. Was it a bad kiss? Naruto scratched his head. No. Hinata instantly covered her mouth as her eyes widened. Well, that's good, Naruto chuckled. I hate to think it was a bad kiss, but it was a lot better than the last one I got. Hinata couldn't help but giggle at the disgusted face he made as she too remembered that day. Hey, it's not that funny, Naruto whined. Sorry, Hinata said with a small smile. So, it was a good kiss then? Naruto asked as she blushed so red, he thought that was a good sign. Well, I hope this doesn't ruin our friendship. I mean, you're one of the most important people in my life. Why, you're important to me too, Hinata said, giving a small yet warm smile. Good, then still best friends, right? Naruto smiled at her with his eyes closed, looking very much like the kind of smile that Kakashi gave. Although she would love to be more than friends, his friendship was something that she never wanted to lose. Yes, still friends, she told him. End flashback. Sakura sighed hearing this. You really need to tell him how you really feel. I want to, but every time I try I just, well. Hinata trailed off. Yeah, we all know, Sakura said to her. In a way we're the complete opposites. You can't tell the boy you like how you feel, and when I tell the boy I like, he just ignores it. Hinata hugged her head, slightly depressed now. She really did want to tell Naruto, but she just couldn't get the courage to do it. It was bad enough that he saw her training that one night, something that she was still embarrassed about and hoped that Naruto never found out that was her. Then there was the kiss, something she had dreamed of all this time, and yet not exactly the magical moment she had hoped for. And Sakura, one of the girls who had come a long way since their childhood, as the pink-haired friend, had had the same confidence problems that Hinata had. While Hinata had gotten a bit better, Sakura was the most changed, and yet she too couldn't seem to get the boy she liked. But you know what? Sakura suddenly said, getting Hinata's attention. I'm not going to give up. I know what I like and I'm going for it. Besides, if he doesn't like me, then I guess I can move on, but not until I said that I've done everything I could, and so should you. And me? Of course, you're not going to let me make an oath like that alone, are you? Sakura smiled at her. Hinata thought about it for a moment and then nodded her head. Somehow, she would find the courage to tell Naruto how she felt one day, she was sure of it. As much as this little display of kunoichi is very touching, it's making me sick to my stomach. They both jumped and got up quickly, and when they saw who it was, they both froze. Standing not 10 feet away was Zabuza, and he was carrying Haku with him. Both young girls weren't sure what to do because they both knew that if this man wanted to kill them both, he could do so easily. Relax, I'm not here to fight, he said coldly to them. Take me to Kakashi and that other woman, I want to talk terms with them. Later. Kakashi and Kurenai had just finished their talk with Zabuza. It wasn't exactly the easiest conversation as everyone was tense. When he had first shown up with Haku in his arms, both Jonin teachers were on their guard just in case. They heard what Zabuza told them about how Gato had tried to kill him and Haku, and the man's plans for hiring an army to attack the town. Kakashi and Kurenai both had been paying attention to both his story and his body language. Being a ninja meant you picked up a lot of different skills, and to be a Jonin you usually had many on hand. One of them was the ways to pick up when someone was lying. Unfortunately, another trait was how to lie, and it was safe to assume that Zabuza knew how to lie and not be caught as well. It was just one of those circular logical problems that happened in the ninja world. Kakashi decided to take things at another angle. This man wouldn't come to them with such a story just to get them to lower their guard and kill them in their sleep. When you fought someone, you got a good idea of the kind of person they were. Zabuza was the type to come at you head-on or even sideways, but deception like this wasn't the type of style he had. Plus, Kakashi had seen the man with the boy, it was in the eyes. Zabuza actually cared what happened to Haku, which in itself was surprising to Kakashi, as the stories about the man said he didn't care about anyone or anything. I guess even a demon can have a heart, Kakashi thought as he took all this in. All in all, he came to the conclusion that Zabuza wasn't lying to them, and now they may have solved one problem, but now had a whole new one. So, then you came to us of all people? Kakashi surmised. It's not like I had a lot of choices, Zabuza said, sounded irritated about the whole thing. Besides, I had hoped someone had some medical training to help, and I can't take Haku too far with his injury. We only have basic field training, but we'll do what we can, Kurenai told him. Zabuza nodded. It wasn't what he had hoped for, but it had been a long shot even when he made the choice. Maybe we can work out a deal, Kakashi said, thinking about it. We got a lot of enemies coming here soon, and a lot of innocent people could be hurt or killed, so if you agree to help us out, I can send a message to Konoha to send a medic Nin here for the boy. With that he can make a full recovery. I have your word on that, Zabuza said. Kakashi nodded. Yes, we're no longer enemies it seems, so I might as well use you to help us and also help you in return. Fine, Zabuza simply said. Good, now I think we should make up a plan for the defense of the village, Kurenai said as they started to plan out what they would do. While they were planning, Naruto was looking in on Haku. The boy had been in and out of consciousness as the genin had taken turns looking after him. Hinata seemed to be helpful as she was out looking for herbs to help and had some of her healing salves. They weren't top-notch healing items, but every little bit helped. Naruto was also glad that he worked things out with Hinata. He sighed thinking about that he really needed to get over this. It was just a kiss, right? Okay, so it was his first girl kiss, and it hadn't been bad or nothing. It was just that she had been his best friend for so long he didn't think of her as a girl in that way. Okay, she was cute, but she would never think of him in that way, would she? Plus, he was still haunted by that girl on the water. He couldn't stop thinking about her. Hell, he was still having dreams about that girl. Naruto just sighed thinking that life was just way too complicated these days. You look really serious at the moment, you know that? A soft voice spoke up. Hey, you're awake, Naruto smiled at the boy. He looked a little pale and weak, but so far Haku looked like he was doing better. You look pretty good for a guy who had a hole put into his chest. You're lucky my dad pulled away at the last moment, or you really would be dead. Yes, I'm surprised I lived. Haku had been in and out of it for days. He was surprised that Zabuza had kept him and was caring for him. He was just a tool, wasn't he? Yeah, well, it looks like Zabuza was taking good care of you, and we made a deal with Konoha to send to a medic team. My dad plans to send one of his ninja dogs with a message later today with what's going on. He would have sent it sooner, but he didn't want a team to be jumped by more forces. He had heard how Kakashi explained that he was unwilling to put others into more danger. They were two full teams, granted only genin teams, but he had no way of knowing if Zabuza would have been patrolling the route to the village or any other forces that Gato had. Now with Zabuza on their side for the time being, they had enough intelligence for Kakashi to give that to the Hokage so the team on the way would be able to avoid any dangers. Haku was silent a moment as he stared up at the ceiling. "What's wrong?" Naruto asked. "I'm not sure why I'm still alive, I'm just a broken tool now. I'm worthless to him, so why did he save me?" Haku asked, confused. "You know that kind of talk really pisses me off," Naruto told the boy. "I mean, we're people first, and if you really want to know, it's that he cares about you. I don't know exactly how things are, but you know, in a really weird and strange way, it's kind of like he's your dad." Haku's eyes widened quickly at that. His own father had tried to kill him and ended up killing his own mother. "Oh, come on, the guy took you in, trained you and raised you," Naruto said, smiling. "You want to know a secret? Kakashi did the same thing to me, so in a way we're both the same." Haku looked at the masked boy as he thought about it. It was a strange concept to think of Zabuza as a father figure, but not an unpleasant one. In fact, he had more memories of Zabuza than he had of his own family. And when he looked into the eyes of the boy next to him, he could see that his eyes were very familiar. They were eyes that knew loss, pain, and yet what it was like to be taken in as well. "You have someone precious to protect, don't you?" Haku asked him. Naruto was taken aback from the question. "Yeah, I got lots of people. I mean, there's my dad, the old man, then I got a few crazy people that I like to call my aunt and uncle, my friends, and Hinata-chan." Haku smiled at that. "That's good to know. You know, true power comes from the need to protect those precious to you. That's where real strength comes from, and with so many people to protect, I can see that you'll get very strong." "Ha ha," Naruto laughed, rubbing the back of his head. "Thanks. So, can you tell me more? I never really got to talking with others before," Haku asked him. Naruto nodded as he started up with his life, then went into his family and friends, and even his best memories of them as well. Haku told him about the Mist Village and his life on the road with Zabuza, well, the good parts and not the missions. Overall, it was a good time for both young boys, and both felt that they had met someone that could understand them in ways that others couldn't, even if they didn't totally understand it themselves. They were still talking when Kiba came in to relieve Naruto, but the boy just said he had it covered. Kiba shrugged as it meant some free time for him, so he was all for it. He just got them some lunch, and that was it. It was weird as how Haku had not that long ago been their enemy, and there was Naruto making friends like the boy was an old friend. Kiba had to admit that Naruto had a talent for making friends. He still remembered the day he met the blonde at the academy. That had been a rocky start, but later Kiba thought he was a good guy, but there was still Zabuza. Now that was one scary guy, and he wasn't sure he could even sleep comfortably knowing that guy was around. He could already tell that it was going to be a long night tonight, plus from what they had heard from Kurenai, Gato was about to attack very soon as well. Man, when it rains it pours, it seems, Kiba thought as he wondered what he could do to kill a few hours. Chapter 40, Gato's Attack. The ninja was gathered around Tazuna and his family's dinner table, as they were setting up their plans to defend the village. There were many little things to represent certain buildings or areas of the village as they planned it out. Kakashi and Kurenai had to admit it was strange working with Zabuza, but the man knew the kind of people that Gato had, and so far, the plan was looking good. "So, then we're in agreement on the plan," Kakashi said, looking it over one last time, and then looked to Zabuza. "You're sure the attack will be today?" "Not all the way, but given that he tried to have me killed with Haku says he's ready," the former Mist Ninja said. As the adults were talking, the genin were already preparing in another room. Team 7 was told to get rid of the weights on their wrists and ankles so that they would be able to move more freely and not to hamper their speed. While doing this, both teams were preparing in different ways. Shino was communing with his bugs to help with planning out the possible things that could happen to them. Hinata was busy ensuring that her healing supplies were well stocked up as well in case anyone got injured, as well as the few medical supplies they were keeping here as well. Kiba was looking over his equipment with Akamaru asking the dog questions, mostly about which pills the dog felt he could handle if they were needed. Team 7 was doing the same, although they were also looking over their weapons as well. Sakura was polishing her metal tonfas, checking for any weakness in the metal that could make the weapon break just in case. Naruto and Sasuke were working on their swords as well. The atmosphere was pretty tense as no one was saying anything. For Team 8 this would be their first major battle. Kiba was actually looking forward to it while Hinata was a bit more nervous, and Shino, well, it was hard to tell with him what he was feeling. Team 7 had been through something like this before, sure not as big as this, but they were preparing themselves for the battle ahead. Inari had been nervous about the whole thing, although lately he had been thinking on things. Seeing kids, not much older than him, preparing for battle was a little unsettling. He saw Naruto taking care of a sword with great care, as the younger boy came closer to take a good look at it. Naruto couldn't help but smile behind his mask at the boy's interest and looked at him. Like it? It looks pretty cool, but it looks different than Sasuke's. Inari told him. Yeah, it's a chakra blade. It actually can channel chakra from the user. This belonged to my grandfather, and then my father, and now it's mine. It served the Hatake family for 3 generations, and now it's my turn to carry it. Naruto told him, and he was proud to wield this blade. There was an untold amount of history with it, and now it was his turn to add to that history. Inari looked at the blade, his eyes widening a bit more at the thought of the sword being in use for so long. It didn't look that old, plus there was no damage on the blade either. Then he looked back to Naruto again. Why are you guys doing this? I mean, you don't have to risk your lives for us. Because it's the right thing to do. We were hired to protect your grandfather, but we're taking a little leeway with our mission. In a way we're still protecting him, but now we're just expanding how. I figure with Gato gone he'll be pretty well protected, and if the village is safer for it, then that's one hell of a nice bonus, right? At least that's what I think. My dad plans on telling to Hokage to explain all of this. Naruto gave the boy a wink to let him know the meaning behind his words. Inari could only give a small smile, knowing that the boy really meant. Bridge. It was later in the day when Tazuna and his people were working on the bridge. So far things were going well, and in a week the bridge should be finished. It was like a dream come true. One of, if not the largest over-water bridge, was nearing completion, and soon the village would have a direct trade route to the mainland for the first time ever. They wouldn't need to rely on shipping companies like Gato's anymore. Now trade caravans could make their way into the village on their own for once, and since the bridge belonged to the village, no company had any rights to it. That meant that Gato couldn't sink his claws into it like he had with many other businesses in their land, which was slowly choking his village into a slow death. Although he knew that plan, that didn't mean he wasn't nervous about all of this. There was just a lot riding on this, and the waiting was nerve-wracking for the old man as well. He sighed as he gave out orders to the workers. They may be the bait for this trap, but there was still a bridge to build, and no matter what, he wasn't losing any time. It wasn't until one of the workers came up behind him. Hey Tazuna, I think we have company. Tazuna turned around, and there he could see a group of people walking towards them. He could see Gato out in front, and his blood ran cold at the sight of the man. Normally he wasn't one to hate another person, but in Gato's case he made an exception. This man had caused untold amounts of pain to his village and family. There was nothing more he would love to see than that man to get what was coming to him. Gato stopped a few yards away with a grin on his face, looking over the bridge. It seems you never learned, do you, Tazuna? I would have thought my demonstration in town with that boy of yours would have stopped you from this foolishness. You were also lucky to make it back, but this ends here, old man. Once you're gone, I'm going to demolish this bridge, and then the village will serve as an example for others. But first, where are those Konoha ninja? Gato looked around but saw only construction workers. Tazuna gave a small smile that left Gato confused. All around you, Tazuna said. All the workers turned into puffs of smoke as they turned into Team 7, with the majority of them being shadow clones of Naruto, who had put them into a henge. There was also Zanbuza as well, grinning almost evilly under his bandages. In fact, with the amount of killing intent he was giving off, even those on his side were giving him some space. Gato looked at the ninja in front of him. He hadn't planned on them being here, let alone Zabuza being here. Gato had thought the man when he heard the news of his escape would be on the run. Not once did he think he would actually join the other ninja. It was obvious he was worried from the look on his face, but he still had on a sly grin on his face. You think you're all so smart, well by this time the village will be having a surprise with all of the rest of my men. I thought I had cowed this village, but I guess they needed a reminder. Maybe if I take a member of each family, they'll learn their lesson, and I doubt the old fool can live with that kind of blood being spilt, am I right? Tazuna looked a bit sickened at the thought. It was bad enough what had happened to his son-in-law, but he knew that Gato wasn't bluffing. The man was the kind that could do something like that and not even lose a bit of sleep over it. You're a bigger fool than I thought, Zabuza said to him. You honestly think all of the Konoha ninja are here? Back in the village the men that Gato hired started to terrorize the village. You could hear the shouts and cries of panic as the criminals busted into homes or businesses. The people were running in the streets and some of men were carrying or dragging people into the streets, but thankfully Team 8 was on the job to protect the village. Kiba was with Akamaru on a rooftop as he saw a few men dragging out a family. As an Inuzuka, he like the rest of his clan had strong ties to their families, so seeing one being attacked only made him angry. Let's go Akamaru, he said, giving the small dog a special pill of his. The puppy ate it and his fur turned red as he took on a more vicious look. Kiba got on all fours as his dog jumped onto his back. Beast-human clone jutsu, Kiba said as both he and Akamaru transformed. Kiba's nails and fangs grew out, giving him a slightly feral look as Akamaru turned into an exact copy. It was a clan jutsu that made their dogs take on the forms of their owners, and a bit of their dogs went into them, enhancing them. Fong over Fong, Kiba cried out as they both jumped into the air and starting to spin. They looked like two mini tornadoes as they flew into the group of thugs. The men scattered as they were hit by the Inuzuka team, their bodies covered in claw marks. Shino was in another part of the town as he calmly looked over the scene. Earlier he had used his bugs to mark all the civilians in the town with a special pheromone so his bugs would know who to protect and who to hurt. He raised his arms as swarms of black insects flew out over his area of the town. The criminals soon found themselves being covered in his bugs as they ate their chakra. It only lasted a moment, but the men fell to the ground too weak to move. He recalled his bugs to him and moved on to another section to defend. Kurenai ended up trapping her opponents in mass illusions. She wasn't as kind as her students as she slowly took out the hired criminals. That made them see their allies as enemies, and she watched coldly and calmly as they killed their comrades, not knowing the truth. When there was one left, she easily came up behind him and slit his throat. Some may see what she did as cold and unfair, but she was a ninja and at times things needed to get this dirty in order to win and protect others. After she was done like the rest, she went in search of others. Hinata felt nervous. She never was one for violence, but she knew what would happen if she did nothing. She still remembered how she froze in her first battle. She had done better the next time, but this time there was a whole village to protect. She found a couple of hired swords chasing two children for fun apparently. She jumped down in front of the men who looked on in amusement. Why you will leave them and this village alone, she told them, although she wished she hadn't stuttered or had put more force into her voice. The men just laughed at her and told her that she should have stayed home playing with her dolls. Hinata readied herself as she activated her bloodline. She could see their chakra paths, and they would learn that she may be the most gentle of the Hyuga clan. She was in no means not a threat. They came in at her, and they were surprised by the speed and agility she was showing by twisting out of their attacks. Her hands with lightning speed struck at their key chakra points. In a matter of seconds, she had them both on the ground, unable to move. She cast a quick look to see the children had run off and she wished them well. A loud sound caught her attention as her eyes picked up more trouble a few blocks down as she ran towards it. In another part of the village at Tazuna's home, his daughter and grandson could hear the sounds of the battle. Tsunami was worried, not only for her village, but for her grandfather and the ninja he had hired. Inari looked up at his mother, and he could see that she was worried sick. He on the other hand had a newfound faith in Naruto and his friends. It will be okay, Mom, Inari told her, and she gave a small smile. I'm going to check on Haku, okay? The small boy went up the stairs to where the injured ninja was still recovering. He looked in bad shape to the young boy and couldn't help but wonder at times how the older boy managed to hang on with a wound like that. He entered the door to see that Haku was asleep again. There was still some food left, and he reached down to take it so it wouldn't spoil when he heard the commotion downstairs. There was the sound of the door being forced open and his mother's scream. He heard the sounds of unfamiliar men's voices. There were the sounds of struggling, and Inari ran downstairs. He saw the mess of the kitchen from the overturned table, but he didn't see anyone. Then the sounds he noticed again were outside this time, and so he ran out fearing for his mother. As soon as he got out the door, he saw two men had his mother. Mom! Inari yelled out, trying to run to her, but he had been in such a hurry he hadn't noticed a man had been by the door. He felt a strong hand grip him by the back of his neck as he tried in vain to thrash out of it. Inari, please don't hurt him, Tsunami told their captors. Sorry lady, but the boss says the old bridge builder is to pay for getting in the way. You and the kid are going to be the message, one of the men holding her told her without a hint of remorse at all. The other one leered at her, thinking, you know the boss didn't say when to kill them, and she's kind of pretty. You think he'd mind if we had some fun with her before we do her and the kid in? Leave her alone, Inari shouted out as one of the men licked the side of her face. The men laughed, but suddenly the one holding Inari gave a grunt as his body jerked and then fell forward. The last two men were stunned seeing their comrade fall down with a slim metallic object dug into the base of his skull at the neck. Everyone looked up to see a very haggard-looking Haku there. He was barely standing up, and he looked like he was in pain with the effort, with a modified sling holding his arm. Haku had woken up from the noise, and it had been a major effort to even get this far, but these people had helped him when he had tried to kill a member of their own family. He felt that he owed a department for this family, plus he liked them as well. Who the hell are you? One of the men demanded. You're deaf, Haku said simply, and with his good hand threw the two senbons at the other men, both hitting them in the side of their eye as the small metal weapons impeded into their brains, killing them instantly. Haku lost any strength he had left and sank to his knees, unable to even stand up anymore. Tsunami and Inari ran to the boy as the woman helped to keep the young man upright. What are you doing out of bed? You could have been killed, Tsunami said, even though she was so grateful for the boy's help with his injury. Haku gave a small smile. I know, but I had to help for all the kindness you've shown me. I'm more surprised you can even stand, Inari said to the pale-looking boy. Haku gave a small smile. You know the secret to true strength? When you have something precious to you to protect, that's what gives you the strength to carry on no matter what. Inari instantly thought back to his father. He thought back to that horrible day when he had seen him killed in front of the entire village. There had never been any fear in his eyes. In fact, in one moment he had locked eyes with Inari, and he had actually smiled. Inari didn't understand it then how his father could have endured all of that and why he fought Gato. But after what Haku said, maybe that was the reason why his father had never given up. His father had never given in no matter what Gato's men had done to him. And now there was Naruto and his team and friends defending their village without showing the same fear. Inari then remembered how he had been acting since his father's death, and he felt ashamed. His father wouldn't want him to be like that, and thinking about his father he knew what he had to do. Inari got up and started running to the house. Inari, what are you doing? Tsunami asked her son. Something I should have done a while ago, Inari told her, getting the supplies he needed. The village for too long had been cowed under Gato's power, but he was just one man. There were kids not much older than him putting their lives on the line for his village, and how can they hold their heads up with pride if the village not once even tried to help? It was time for the village to get its pride and its honor back, and he knew the way to do it. Bridge. Back on the bridge, Zabuza was hefting his large sword, preparing to hack to pieces as many men as he had to get at Gato. The rest of the ninja team looked just as ready as well. There were a lot of them, but they were just mercenaries. A ninja was far more deadly than any mercenary, although with the numbers they had it would give them a bit of pause. But only for a bit. Kakashi and Zabuza were there up front as both men readied themselves for the battle. Team 7, you know the plan, we're frontal assault, Naruto and Sasuke you're the middle and Sakura you're our defender for those that slip past. Kakashi ordered out calmly. Team 7 went into action as the boys drew their swords spacing out to be on the outside while Sakura was centered in the formation at the back to protect Tazuna. They made a diamond-shaped formation as they waited for the mercenaries to charge. They didn't have to wait long. The men charged at them figuring with their numbers they didn't have anything to fear. Zabuza and Kakashi showed them otherwise as they started to cut into the mercenaries. Zabuza like before used his massive blade to cut a bloody path of death through them. Although the plan was for him and Kakashi to thin the group, he still wanted to get at Gato. Kakashi had a kunai in each hand as he preferred to use his quickness and agility when fighting. He moved through the enemies dodging their attacks and using fatal counters. Naruto and Sasuke gave each other a small look. Naruto grinned under his mask and gave the Uchiha a silent challenge. Sasuke noticed this and gave his usual smirk and got himself ready. Both boys had killed before, and although Sasuke had an easier time, he was remembering Kakashi's words to him earlier. Naruto was doing the same. He was controlling his breathing and preparing himself to kill again. He didn't want to, but he was a ninja now. He would feel bad later. At the moment he had people to defend and his team needed him. Soon the men came through the holes in Zabuza and Kakashi's line. The boys were ready as they used their swords to deal with the enemies that came at them. Naruto had created a few clones to help with the defensive lines. He wished he could use his exploding clones, but he didn't think Tazuna would appreciate the holes in the bridge. And his wind elements wouldn't really be good in tight quarters with allies so close. The same could be said with Sasuke as his fire techniques as well, so the plan called for swords. Sakura waited in her position, although a part of her hated being in the back. They had to protect Tazuna. Plus, she wasn't all that eager to go into a killing field. She had gotten over her first kill mostly, but she didn't want to do it anytime soon. She watched as Naruto and Sasuke were in the heat of battle using their swords to injure, incapacitate, and even kill again. She swallowed hard trying to put those thoughts aside. The mission came first. She recalled the lessons in class about putting your emotions aside in a fight in order to get through it. Soon a few men had managed to break through the second line of defense, and were heading towards her. Most likely they viewed her as the least threatening. She remembered how Anko told her that because of her looks most would assume she wouldn't be much of a threat. Remember Sakura, you're not exactly the most intimidating looking ninja, so they'll take it easy. The trick is to use it. If they make the mistake of thinking you're soft and easy, then you have to make them pay for it. You'll only get a small opening before they realize the truth, so hit them hard and fast, kid. Sakura nodded to herself, remembering Anko's words while she had been training under her in the use of the tonfas. The men came as her and Sakura could see them relax just like Anko said they would. She waited until they were close and then she unleashed her full fury. Without her weights she was much faster, and she hit a hell of a lot harder as well. Cold metal soon met flesh or the metal of their blades. Sakura would feel or even hear bones cracking and breaking as he hit the weakest areas of their bodies. She broke their ribs, joints, and the few times she got in a shot at the face, their teeth and noses. It was hard work, but thankfully Naruto had seen how many were getting through and sent a few of his clones as backup. She was thankful for that and made a mental note that when they got out of this, whenever she gained enough chakra, she would ask him if he could teach her that move. Having an extra hand here and there was very useful, but now was the time to concentrate on making sure they did survive this day. Gato saw which way the battle was going after a while. He had thought that the ninja would be too busy protecting the village. His plan to keep them busy with the village as he killed Tazuna was ruined now. Without the client the ninja would have no reason to stay, and as soon as they left the remainder of his men were to come back then. Now he would have to flee while he could and hope there was enough men left to start on a new plan. He turned around to get off the bridge but stopped when saw what was coming towards him on the other side. There was a group of people coming his way, but they weren't his men, they were the village, and Team 8 was leading the way. While Team 7 had been busy, Inari had managed to gather up the villagers. After they had seen how Team 8 was fighting for them, and some choice words from Inari, the villagers had finally managed to find the courage to stand up to Gato. Those that could fight gathered what they could, and went to help Team 8, and with their help they quickly managed to wipe up the rest of Gato's men. After they were done, Kurenai led them as quickly as they could to the bridge to see if Kakashi's team would need any help. By the time they got there, they could see that Gato's men were in trouble, and the man himself was trying to get away. Gato backed up a few steps as the people were getting closer. Gato was thinking that there had to be a way out of this, maybe he could bargain with them, it was worth a shot. Although by the looks of the villagers he was starting to doubt that, he still couldn't believe that things had gotten so bad. Kurenai was in the lead as the villagers were halted a few yards from Gato. Gato, you have serious crimes to pay for, Kurenai said to him. Murder, extortion and violence, just to name a few. Go ahead and arrest me then, Gato grinned as he found his way out. With his money and resources, he could buy his freedom. Sure, it wouldn't be cheap and he might do some jail time, but nothing too bad, and he could use the time to plan his revenge as well. Sorry, but I'm not letting you off that easy, a familiar voice said, making Gato break out in fear as he turned around. To the man's horror, there was Zabuza running towards him. The ninja's eyes were like a blazing fury of hellfire as he came at the man. No one tries and double-cross me, Gato, and it's time for this demon to send you to hell. Zabuza yelled out as his blade came down and literally cut Gato in half. It was a gruesome scene to most there that weren't used to such violence. Hinata felt sick just looking at it. Shino didn't say anything, but even he had a shocked expression on his face. Kiba was at a loss for words for a moment as he stared at the bloody mess that used to be a person. Oh man, that was the most brutal thing I've ever seen, Kiba muttered to himself. After seeing their boss killed, the few remaining hired men decided to hope for mercy and surrender. Chapter 41, Mission's End. After the Battle of the Bridge, the surviving men that Gato had hired were taken and placed into a storage building until the proper authorities could take them away for trial. After that, in some cleanup, the entire village was celebrating. After Gato's death, it was like an entire weight had been lifted from all their lives. Being in constant fear and poverty had taken its toll on them all, and now they had an excuse to celebrate. All over the village people were laughing and having fun. They were still poor, but now with Gato out of the way they could start up their businesses again without giving Gato his cut, which was where most of their profits had gone to. The genin were also living it up mostly, as everyone saw the Konoha ninja as heroes of the village. There was one ninja that wasn't celebrating, however, and that was Zabuza. He wasn't really a party type of guy, and was sitting on the house of the bridge builder working on his blade. He had cleaned all the blood and gore off it, and now he was sharpening it as he had done countless times. What do you want, Hatake? Zabuza asked, not even looking at his blade. Kakashi wasn't surprised that Zabuza had sensed him. After all, the man had been in Mist's version of ANBU. Just wondering why you're up here instead of taking part of the celebrations, he said without a care. I tried to kill the old man and they want to throw a party with me? No thanks, besides I'm not a people person, he told Kakashi, looking at his work. Kakashi nodded himself as he looked over the village. A part of him was glad that they had fulfilled the mission as they had. Too many times he had seen too much death and destruction. It was a bit nice to finally see the good that could come out of missions like this. He only wished he could see how much better the village would become. You're still sending the medics, right? Zabuza had the slight hint of a threat in his words, giving Kakashi a reminder of what happened to the last man that tried to screw him over. They should be arriving soon enough, Kakashi said honestly. But the big question is, what will you do now? That had been something the missing nin had been thinking about since he got up on the roof. Once Haku was healed, he wasn't exactly sure, plus there was the problem of Hunter Ninja showing up while the kid was healing too. Honestly, not sure. We'll have to be on the move again as soon as he's ready with the price on my head. Kakashi nodded again. trying to kill a Kage was a major crime in the ninja world. Normally when a ninja went rogue, if they didn't go out on their own, they tried to join another village. But for his crime no village would trust him, and even if they did, it could mean war with Mist. That village wouldn't stand for anyone helping someone that tried to kill their leader, and would go to any lengths for it. Kakashi had been thinking about this as well. It wasn't like he could just join Konoha. First off, the elders on the council would have a fit, plus Konoha was enjoying its peace, and war with Mist of all places was something many avoided. It wasn't defeat as more of the bloody cost that deterred war with them. After all, there were no other ninja village that turned out more bloodthirsty ninja than they did. So, you'll be hunted until you're dead, huh? Kakashi said, more of a statement than a question. Unless I can gather the funds to bring up an army with me, but I was running low before Gato, and with him gone it's going to be tough. The Mist Nin told the man. Kakashi was silent a moment before he said something. What if you were dead? What? Well, Kakashi put his hands into his pockets looking up. What if I said in my report that you were killed? Word would get out, and they would drop the hunt. Zabuza knew there was more to it than just that. What's the catch? Well, I'll need something from you. Your headband with your blood on it should do. But in order for this to work you'll have to disappear like, say, some out-of-the-way village that would hide you. Kakashi smirked as he could see his words reaching the other man. Plus, you'll have to hide your sword and change your looks. Thankfully most people I bet don't know you by your face, as like me you like to keep it covered. Even if I do this, and that's a big if, what the hell am I going to do here? Kakashi made an effort of looking like he was thinking hard when he had already had an answer before he even came up here. Well, I doubt all of Gato's men were captured, and I think this village could use a man to help protect them. Plus, this land has no hidden village, so I think a man like yourself can find much work here. Zabuza went back to his sword to think on that. Logically, it was the best option. He could get plenty of work, but he would have to give up his name and everything that went with it. He closed his eyes thinking hard on that. Was there anything really worth keeping of his old life? Ever since that boy's words when Haku had been injured, he could feel a change in him. He wasn't sure of what kind of change, but he knew he couldn't continue as he had up to this point. Plus, Haku needed to rest, and running around the known world always trying to be one step ahead wouldn't be good for him. I'll think about it, Zabuza said. Sure thing, no pressure, but there is one more thing I would like to know. Call it professional curiosity. Kakashi said. What is it? Why did you try and kill the Mizukage of Kirigakure? Zabuza wasn't sure if he should say or not. Kirigakure was very secretive. In fact, no one knew who the Mizukages were outside of the Mist Village, and how many there had been. The land, like its name, was shrouded in secrecy. It was ingrained into all the ninja the importance of this, but then again, he wasn't a ninja of that village anymore. After some debating, he figured there was no harm in it. Besides, if it pissed off the new Kage, then so be it. It's because our current Mizukage is an outsider. Zabuza said, and he could see the shock on Kakashi's face. An outsider becoming a Kage was unheard of in the ninja world. He came into the village years ago. He wore a strange mask with only one single eye hole in it. He called himself Azuna at the time, but I doubt that's his real name. Zabuza paused as he remembered those days. We don't take to intruders very well, and we sent out Best out after him. He killed them all without an effort. He called out our Kage and the two fought. I don't know where he came from, but the truth is, he's better than me. I saw him kill out Kage like it was nothing, and he claimed the title. Of course, others fought this, but they soon died. He promised that under his leadership he could give us true power in the ninja world. I for one never accepted him as our leader, and neither did most of the 7 swordsmen. We tried our hand at defeating him, but we lost. Several of us died that day while the rest fled. Kakashi took all that in. So far it fit with a few of the reports and stories that Konoha intelligence managed to scrap together. But the fact that someone that powerful had taken over an entire village wasn't good news. He knew that the Hokage and the council would need that kind of information for the future. Kakashi looked over the city, and he didn't feel like celebrating anymore after hearing this. A few days later. After a few days the bridge had been finished and the entire village had come out to say goodbye to the Konoha ninja. Kakashi and Kurenai had both taken their students aside and told them what was going to happen with Zabuza and Haku, and they were asked to swear to never speak the truth. If anyone ever asked them about Zabuza, they were to say that Kakashi and Kurenai killed him on the bridge and Haku had died earlier from his injuries. As the town went to say goodbye to them, Haku was there in a wheelchair. The medic team would be arriving in a few hours, so he could finally get his injuries healed. Zabuza was there, although it was a surprise to see him. He didn't wear anything over his face, and was wearing some civilian clothing he got. He looked more like some large fisherman now, and he didn't look too happy about it. Inari went up to Naruto looking sad. So see the older boy leaving, will you ever come back? I'll try and visit when I can, Naruto smiled at him. Besides, someone has to look after Haku while I'm gone, and I'm trusting you with that, okay? Inari looked up with a small smile on his face as he nodded his head. Haku gave a small laugh at hearing that, although he didn't mind. After all, he was living in the same home, and he got along well with Inari and his family. Haku then exchanged some words with Naruto, as well as both boys swore they would keep in touch. Everyone said goodbyes as both teams left on the newly finished bridge. So, what are you going to call the bridge? Tsunami asked her father. He had been thinking about that for a long time actually, and after he gave a few ideas, all which were flat out rejected, he came up with something else. Well then, how about the Great Konoha Bridge in memory of all of them? Zabuza groaned, taking Haku back as he heard the agreements, although Haku seemed pleased by the name. About a couple of hours outside of the village, the teams were making their way home looking forward to it. Hinata was glad to see her village again as well. She never expected things to get too crazy when they first started this mission, but she felt better for doing it. She still felt sick when she thought about the death she had seen. While in the battle, she and her teammates had seen the bodies that their sensei had left behind, and it had been the first time she had seen death. It got even worse when she had seen Gato's death. She hadn't eaten dinner after that one, but Sakura had seen her and taken her aside for a talk. She was surprised how the two of them were getting closer on the mission, although she had always been friends with Sakura, and Ino, this was the first time she really started to feel close to the other girl. After some talking, she had felt a bit better after that. But now Hinata just wanted to see her family again, and she was wondering how things were while she was gone. She was so lost in thought she hadn't noticed something coming out of the bushes, and started to follow her a bit. Hey Hinata, looks like your old friend is back, Kiba said, getting everyone's attention. Hinata looked around, and there behind her was that same little white rabbit from before. Hinata was surprised to see the little rabbit again and knelt down. The rabbit took a few hesitant steps before sniffing her outstretched hands. She giggled, feeling it tickle her hand as she slowly reached out to pet the small animal. I wonder what it's still doing out here, Sakura said, looking at it. Well, it's a tame animal used for substitution, Kakashi said, remembering the animal from before. He looks underfed, Hinata said as she noticed it looked thinner, and the hair wasn't as nice as last time. It's not used to the wild, Kurenai spoke up as she was surprised the animal was still alive. Normally a tame animal thrust into the wild was hunted down much more easily than one born in it. Hinata found some food and started to feed the small animal. Kurenai sighed as she noticed how Hinata was over the animal. She knew what was coming next, and she wasn't sure what to say to it. Kurenai-sensei. Hinata started off, looking up with pleading eyes to the older woman. Kurenai wasn't sure she had the heart to say no to the girl. She thought of Hinata almost as family in a way. The girl was so pure and kind that it was hard not to like the small girl, and the fact that Hinata looked up to her only made it worse. You'll have to ask your father, you know, Kurenai said to her student. I will, Hinata smiled at her. So, you're going to try and keep him? Sakura said excitedly, looking at the cute little thing. Why not? Naruto smiled under his mask. After all, Shino has his bugs and Kiba has Akamaru. So why can't Hinata-chan have an animal herself? Hinata blushed a bit as she picked up the rabbit. He seemed lighter than before, and she was worried that any longer out in the foods and the animal might have died. Now she only had to worry about what to tell her father. It was a shorter trip this time. On their way back to Konoha, the kids were talking excitedly about all the things that had gone on in the mission. Kakashi was actually very proud of the way that they had handled during the mission, and from the way Kurenai looked, she was pleased as well. When they were a day out of Konoha, the weather took a huge turn as a small heat wave seemed to have shown up. It was usually hot in the fire country, as they never even got snow this far south, and days like this did happen now and then. By the time they reached the massive gates of their village, they all were sweating. "Man, I'm so glad to be home," Kiba said as he was carrying his large coat by this time, and Akamaru was sitting on his head panting. He looked to his two teammates. "How is it you two can keep your coats on in this heat anyway?" Shino just shrugged. "My family is very good at using our bugs to regulate body temperature." Which was true, as the bugs could be used for many different reasons, although another reason was because people tended to be freaked out by all the small flaps in the skin where the insects came out. Kiba looked to Hinata for her explanation as she blushed, holding her pet to her chest a bit closer. She was hot, but she also was very shy about her body, and just didn't want to take it off. "Hey Dad, maybe we should hit the lake or river for some downtime." Naruto spoke up as his black vest is now in his backpack, leaving him only in his orange t-shirt. Kakashi nodded. "Sounds like a good idea so far to me." Cool. But after we've all rested up and made our reports, Kakashi continued, leaving Naruto to hang his head in disappointment. He chuckled at how easy it was to toy with his son at times, then he noticed the tired looks of the others. They all had walked a long distance over the strange heat that suddenly showed up, and so maybe he could give them the rest of the day off. "Well, how about you all go? I'm sure myself and Kurenai can make the report." That is, if she doesn't have anything against the idea. "No, I'm fine with that," Kurenai said to him. As everyone made their ways home, Hinata nervously went to the Hyuga compound. The rabbit was currently sleeping in her arms, and she was worried that her father might not let her keep him. Hinata made it to the front gates when one of the guards told her that she was to report to her father's study as soon as she got home to report on her mission. Hinata had hoped for a chance to hide her rabbit, but looked like she might not be able to. She hoped that she could run into her sister or Niji, but as luck would have it, she didn't see them, and her room was further away than her father's office, and most likely someone would have told him that she was back. She knocked on his door and she heard him to come in. She nervously opened the door and walked in as her father was working on some documents. "So how did your mission go?" Hayashi asked, not looking up at the moment. "It went very well, father. I learned a new skill and helped to defend a town from invading mercenaries." "That's good so far, and I would like a copy of the mission report from your sensei whenever she can," Hayashi said as he then looked up. He kept his face neutral with the exception of one of his eyebrows going up slightly. "Hinata, what are you doing with that animal?" Hinata bit her lower lip. I found him. He was used for a replacement technique. I thought that I could take care of him. I'll take full responsibility, father, and I'll keep him out of the way." Hayashi didn't really care for pets, mainly because his father had thought that he and his brother shouldn't have them as they were a distraction. But looking at his daughter and how far she was coming around, maybe she did deserve a chance. After all, he knew that his brother would say that they shouldn't treat their own children like their own father had, and they should forge their own paths in parenthood. But he also didn't want to appear weak as well. Since as clan head, he always had people looking at his actions, no matter how small at times. 1 month, he said finally after thinking on it. "You have 1 month to prove you can take care of this animal, and if you can't, then you must get rid of it. You are also to pay for all the needs of your pet yourself as well." He figured that this would also be a good way to see how Hinata could handle real responsibility in the end, and he wanted to see if she could handle it. Hinata was both surprised and overjoyed as well. Hi, I will father. Good, you can go now daughter, he said softly watching her go. When she was gone, he let a small smile tug on his lips. It was nice seeing her happy. He knew he was hard on her and Hanabi from time to time, but he had to prepare them for clan life. But his brother had urged him from time to time to lighten up now and again as well. With that he decided to get back to work and let his daughter deal with her new pet. Hinata walked into her room happy that her father was going to let her keep her rabbit. She let him down as he went to explore Hinata's room. The young girl started to make a list of all the things she would need: a litter box, a place to keep him, food bowl and water as well, plus anything else she could find when she went to the pet shop in the village later. She was taken out of her thoughts as a knock on her door, and Hanabi opened it up. I heard you were back, Hanabi said, glad to see that her older sister was well. Yes, just got back actually. How have things been while I was gone? It was okay, Hanabi shrugged. Konohamaru and I played together while you were gone, so I wasn't bored. Hanabi then noticed the bunny and her eyes lit up at it. Ah, so cute. Is he yours? Hinata nodded. Yes, father said I could keep him if I took full responsibility. Hanabi sat down as the rabbit went to her and started to sniff the younger girl. Hanabi giggled as she lightly petted the furry animal. What's his name? Hinata had been thinking about that and she had the perfect name for the white rabbit. Hakukuin. Later. Kakashi and Kurenai were walking out of the Hokage's office. They had just made their report to the Hokage. They had to give the real version of events, but thankfully with the information Kakashi got from what was going on in Mist Village he agreed to keep their source a secret. Plus, there was no telling how help they could get out of someone of Zabuza's position. The man just knew too much about Kirigakure to go to waste, so it would be made official that Zabuza was killed, and the ninja's headband to Mist as proof. With that out of the way, both of them were looking forward to some downtime. What they didn't expect was the run into Anko on her way to make her own mission report. The purple-haired Kunoichi gave a broad smile at seeing her best friend and Kakashi as well. Hey guys, so you're all back, huh? How did things go? Kakashi sighed, kind of a long story, but in the end, everything worked out at least. So how did things go with you? Oh, the usual, Anko told them. Just had to get close to someone that was dealing in a drug ring that the fire daimyo wanted shut down, in a lethal way of course. With your usual flair? Kurenai asked, smirking, knowing that Anko wasn't exactly the most subtle of people. Anko sighed at her question. I was told to keep it low-key so I couldn't have any fun with it. So I went in as a geisha girl, got close and poisoned him with some snake venom. Simple enough mission, but right now all I want is to get this over with and cool off. Can't be comfortable in that coat of yours either, Kakashi told her. You have no idea, Anko muttered. She loved her coat, but when the weather got like this it could be really hot for her. But still, it held all her weapons, items and her hide, her snakes. It was just too good an item to just throw away from the heat. Plus wearing a shirt and ninja mesh did help balance it out. Maybe you should join us then, Kurenai told Anko of the idea of tomorrow, heading out with both teams to cool off and relax. Kurenai was thinking of using her training grounds, as it had a good water source for them all to use. Anko had to admit that it sounded great, plus there was another thing she could use. It would give her a chance to check out Kakashi in a swimsuit, and also, she could use it to show herself off as well. She had this little number she had been saving for a special occasion. With this she could try and see if she could get Kakashi interested. She had been trying to think of a way to see if he could be, and this was the perfect chance. She also got another idea as well as she looked at her best friend. She knew that there was something with Kurenai and Asuma, so why not just help her friend out as well? You know, that's a good idea. In fact, why not we get the other brats in on this? I think Asuma's team is not doing anything, Anko said. I guess we could have them, Kakashi said before Kurenai could say anything. After all, Naruto is friends with them as well, so it's only fair. Good, then I'll see you all tomorrow, but now I got to report in. Anko smiled at them as she walked into the office. She couldn't wait until tomorrow and see how things went. Chapter 42, Waterside Fun. Yahoo! Naruto shouted out as he dashed off for the water. Kakashi could only chuckle as his son's antics as he watched him race to the water. Kakashi watched as the other two genin in his group also started running. Well, Naruto had challenged Sasuke to a race, and once again that boy refused to lose to Naruto, and Sakura just went along with it, not wanting to be left out. Kakashi reflected on how the morning went, after a very unwelcomed wake-up call from his son, because the boy didn't want to be late. They were soon on their way to get the others. Both men were wearing their trademark masks, although while Naruto was in a bright pair of orange swim trunks, Kakashi opted for a black pair. He watched as the kids kicked off their sandals and threw aside towels and other items to gain more speed. Sakura was wearing a decent two-piece that was red and covered most of her chest, although the plush from Naruto and a slightly cast look from Sasuke at first said that it was nice on her. Kakashi wasn't really looking, as it wouldn't be proper, while Sasuke threw off a blue t-shirt as he dived into the water with white and blue trimmed trunks. By the looks of it, the boys might have tied in the race with Sakura just a fraction of a second behind. Of course, both boys wanted to admit that they were first, which led to the usual arguing and Sakura trying to make peace with the two. Kakashi sighed, some things just never changed. Damn, they beat us. Kakashi turned his head to see Team 8 was on their way. Kiba, who had spoken out, was already in gray trunks putting down his stuff, with Akamaru jumping off the boy's head. He noticed Kurenai was in a white one-piece with a sash around her waist. Although not as skimpy as he knew Azuma would like, the woman's figure made up for it. Kakashi mentally chuckled when Azuma got a look at her. He knew the man might have a thing for the red-eye Genjutsu mistress. His gaze went to Hinata, who, although he could tell she was wearing something, the girl was still wearing her coat. She looked a little embarrassed and noticed another Hyuga with them, he recognized as Hanabi. Apparently Hinata hadn't wanted to leave her little sister out of the fun. Then he noticed Shino. He was wearing shorts but still had on his coat. Kakashi gave Kurenai a questioning look, and she just sighed and shrugged her shoulders. Kurenai had tried to convince him to join in, but apparently Shino and his family never really liked water all that much. Apparently, it had something to do with their insects getting wet, although he had learned water walking. Shino actually couldn't swim. So how are things? Kakashi asked. Well, enough, Kurenai said to him. Anko said she was coming but is running late. I also Guy might be showing up as well. Kakashi cringed as he really hoped Guy would tone it down. The one time the Jonin all got time off at a place with swimming, he showed up in a black swimming thong. The sight alone gave him and many others horrible nightmares, and he was banned from ever showing up in that in public again. That would be my fault, Hinata said, looking down. I told Niji Nizan and he told Tenten, who told Lee, who told Guy-sensei. Well, it's not a problem, besides it's not often all the teams get time off anyway. Kakashi smiled at her. So, I see we're not late. Came another familiar voice. Everyone looked to see Asuma in black shorts and a vest walking with his own team plus one other addition. Hey Hanabi! Konohamaru yelled out, seeing his friend. Hanabi waved back to the boy, glad to see someone more her own age here. Asuma chuckled, hope you don't mind that I brought my nephew. Once he heard what was going on, he demanded to come. I'm sure Naruto will be happy to see him. Kakashi smiled as the other children ran off to join the others. I hope he's not the only one, Kakashi. Anko's voice came up behind him. Kakashi turned around and his one visible eye widened at the sight before him. There was Anko in a black two-piece holding a towel and a small bag in one hand. Although it was hard not to see anything but the bikini the woman was wearing and what it showed off. Anko was giving him that seductive smile of hers as she walked towards the others. Asuma actually dropped his cigarette at the sight and Kurenai gave him a small glare before turning away. Kakashi tried to say something, but his mouth was suddenly a bit dry at the sight of the special Jonin. Sure, she wore that mesh armor that looked like it was painted on, but she was showing a lot more skin now, and the effect surprised him how much he reacted. "Oh my eternal rival, you have arrived before us." Guy's loud voice boomed out, and for once Kakashi was thankful for the interruption. Kakashi was also glad that Guy was wearing swimming trunks, as the children really didn't need to be traumatized like he and the others had been. Although he did notice that Guy and Lee had the exact same pair of green-colored swimwear. He was starting to think that Guy showed Lee where he shopped the boy bought anything his sensei did. "I guess that means I beat you again, huh?" Kakashi smiled at Guy. Guy suddenly realized that Kakashi had beat him at yet something else, and the shocked expression on his face made Kakashi's morning. He started to tune out the other man as he went on his usual rant about not losing to him again and evening the score. He just hoped that he didn't get roped into another challenge, as he wanted to enjoy the day. Lakeside. The Genins were already starting to mix and grate each other. Ino was showing off her new purple swimsuit to Sakura while looking for Sasuke. Naruto went over to the others as they started to meet up and was glad to see Team Guy had made it. "Naruto-kun, I'm very glad to see you in fine shape, and I hope you don't mind me and my teammates joining you in this most youthful of days," Lee said to him. Naruto shrugged. "Hey, I'm glad you guys could show up, it will be more fun this way." Then he noticed Niji in a plain white trunk, but Tenten had opted for a pink bathing suit and actually had her hair down. He was surprised how it went to her shoulders, as he had never seen her hair like that. He got a grin, as this was the perfect way to push Niji's buttons again. "Hey Tenten, that's a really great swimsuit you got on, and I like your hair down like that. You should do it more often, it looks pretty that way." Naruto smiled at her. Tenten couldn't help a small blush. It was always nice how Naruto complimented her, as she never got any at all. Many just saw her as a tomboy, and there was nothing bad with that, but she was a girl too, damn it, and sometimes she wanted to feel pretty, although she would never admit that out loud even under torture. "Thanks Naruto, it's nice to see someone appreciates it, but I prefer my hair in puns while working." "It keeps it out of the way, and less chance of someone grabbing my hair," Tenten told him. Niji once again clenched his jaws in irritation. He really wishes he wouldn't get upset whenever Naruto paid attention like that to Tenten. She was his friend and teammate, but something about the way Naruto openly flirted and Tenten accepting it just rubbed him the wrong way. "Hey, who are you guys?" Choji asked as he and his team walked up to the others. "Oh right, you guys haven't met yet. Well Niji, I think you met at my last birthday party, but this is my uncle Guy's team. This is Tenten and Lee," Naruto said, introducing them, and vice versa. "Oh man, it's so nice to meet another girl," Ino said, going over to Tenten. "I swear it's like the ninja population is something like 5 men to every woman." Tenten giggled at that. "Yeah I know, which makes it harder on us because we have to prove ourselves more, huh?" "Totally," Ino smirked, taking a liking to the slightly older girl. "Well, I think I'm going to go join Shino," Shikamaru sighed as he went to lay on the grass and enjoy some cloud watching. "Well, let's go then," Konohamaru yelled out after introductions were taken care of as he and Hanabi ran to the water. Hinata, you're not going to swim with that coat, are you? Ino asked, seeing the short-haired girl blush a bit. Come on, you'll have to take it off to swim. Oh okay, Hinata said softly as she took her coat off. She was very shy about her body, and she never did feel she was as pretty as the other girls. In fact, she had worn this coat for a few years even before puberty kicked in. As she took it off, revealing a blue one-piece suit, she noticed Ino looking at her strangely. What? Hinata asked the blonde. When the hell did you get curves? Ino blurted out. She had never seen the other girl like this and just figured that Hinata wore baggy clothing because the other girl hadn't really grown into a more feminine look. But apparently Hinata had been keeping secret that she had done some growing up. Ino had to admit that she was comparing her figure with Hinata's. I don't see why you're hiding all of that, man. If you showed off more, I bet the boys at the academy would have been asking you out. Ino smirked, seeing her blush at that. Really? Hinata never thought she could turn heads, she always thought she was pretty plain. Yeah, you just need more confidence. Ino smiled at her, and then took the Y girl by her shoulders, leading her to the small lake. Here, let me help. Hey guys. Ep. Hinata suddenly found all eyes on her as she felt very embarrassed being the center of attention. What the, is that Hinata? Kiba then whistled as he was next to Sasuke, Lee and Naruto, as they were getting ready for a race on the water. Damn, she sure developed. What the hell does that mean? Naruto shouted at him. Oh, come on, look at her, you'd never know that she had a figure like the other girls with all that clothing on. Kiba smirked and then got a punch to the gut from Naruto. Don't talk about her like that, you idiot. Naruto didn't like the way Kiba had said that, and the whistle just pissed him off for some reason. Kiba, however, took offense to being punched and tackled Naruto into the water as the boys wrestled about. Should we not do something? Lee asked Sasuke. Nah, let them go at it. They'll get tired and forget all about it in about 10 minutes. He said as he noticed Ino was making her way over to him. He sighed as the blonde harpy was making her way. She was just way too clingy and apparently didn't get that he wasn't interested. At least Sakura had gotten the message and stopped annoying him and was concentrating on her ninja skills. Didn't these girls know that the only girls he could be considered interesting were ones he could respect? He cast a look at that Tenten girl and had to admit she was what a kunoichi was supposed to be. He noticed that the Hyuga boy seemed close to her, but nothing that indicated they were dating. Maybe he could use this to get to know the girl more, that is if he could slip away from Ino long enough. On the grass. With the adults looking over the kids, they felt time to actually relax. They weren't kids anymore and they didn't have the energy like the Genins seemed to have. Well, most of them. Guy was off doing handstand push-ups on the water, and Lee was joining him as they were training their flames of youth, as they called it. I get tired just looking at them, Asuma sighed to himself. I just don't know how they have the energy for it, Kurenai put her 2 cents in. Kakashi sighed, you know, if he makes it to old age, I often wonder if he'll be the most fit old man in the world or the most broken up with the things he puts his body through. Anko snickered as she could see an old guy now in a wheelchair trying to race all the other old geezers. At any rate, it was the perfect time to try out a little plan of her to get Kakashi a bit more interested in her. The bathing suit was just part 1, and from his reaction she knew that she got him interested. She rolled onto her back and dug out some sunscreen in the small bag she carried. Hey Kakashi, can you do me a favor? Sure, what? Put this on my back for me, will you? She handed him the bottle and laid down on her towel. Kakashi blinked a few times as he looked at the bottle and then at her. He had to admit it seemed like something out of Ica Ica Paradise, but he shrugged it off and started to work it onto her skin. He had to admit her skin was softer than he had thought it would be. Her body felt nicely toned as well. There were the little scars here and there, but then they all had them. The life of a ninja was a dangerous one, and it would very odd to not get them in the line of duty. He could see a few from cuts, one looked like a small stab wound that had healed over nearly completely. Ninja medics were very good at repairing the skin damage, but they couldn't always heal away all size of an injury. But he didn't mind at all, in fact he found his fingers lightly tracing them at times. Anko sighed at what he was doing, who knew that Kakashi had magic fingers. She wasn't sure what he was doing at times, but it felt nice. She had never been in a position like this before, mainly because she had never trusted a man that much. Her sex life wasn't really all that to talk about, she heard the rumors though. She was a wild one in the sack, she had whips and chains in her bedroom, and all kinds of very kinky things. But the truth was she only had sex a few times, mainly it was just a stress relief and only one-night stands. Sometimes after a mission when the blood was pumping as well, but then lots of ninja usually got laid at moments like that. There was just something about the adrenaline and sex that made people go for it. But in all those few times she never really felt a connection. With Kakashi things were different, she actually felt like she could trust him, and in some strange way she could relate to him more than most. Having your childhood taken from you at an early age and losing all your family, the pain of loss, it wasn't easy for her to connect with others. But over the years she got to know him, and she felt at ease with him. But now she wanted to at least try something more. "Hey, hold on a second, will you?" Anko told him as she reached back and undid the knots in the back of her suit. Kakashi nearly squeezed the bottle dry but stopped himself. "I don't want any tan lines," Anko smiled at him. Kurenai looked a little envious of Anko, although she wasn't sure she could let Asuma try that out. Although the thought of his hands on her skin was appealing, she bet his hands were all rough too. Another sigh from Anko, and Kurenai felt like scowling at the younger woman. It just wasn't fair that Anko was enjoying herself too much. She knew that lately Anko had her sights set on Kakashi, and this was her way of testing the waters. Anko never really had a stable relationship, mostly because of the girl's fear of getting close to someone, but Kakashi was a friend going way back, so most likely the woman was just comfortable enough with him to try it out. Kurenai really did hope things would work out. Anko needed someone stable in her life, and so did Kakashi. "Damn," Asuma muttered as he tried to rub some suntan lotion on his own back and shoulders. He couldn't ask Kakashi as he had his hands full at the moment, guy was too far off, and he wasn't sure he should ask Kurenai. He didn't want to seem like he was overstepping himself with her as he respected her. "What is it?" Kurenai asked. "Nothing major, I just can't reach the back part," he told her, and then felt a pair of soft hands on his shoulders making him jump a bit as he looked over his shoulder. "Here, let me help," she said softly as she worked the lotion he put on over his back. She could feel the hard muscles of his shoulders. She actually loved his shoulders, they were so big and broad, it was one of her secret turn-ons for men. She could see the little scars here and there, as she worked her hands over his back. She had to admit she enjoyed it more than she should have. Asuma closed his eyes, feeling her soft, gentle hands on his back. They felt nice, and when she stopped, he was a bit disappointed. "Thanks," he said, turning towards her. "Well, I can return the favor if you need it. After all, you helped me out, so I should return it." Kurenai turned around to help her out and to hide a small blush. She felt him move her hair aside as he was sitting behind her and started with her shoulders. She had been right, his hands were rough and strong, but his touch was still gentle. She nearly bit back a moan as he worked her shoulders. "Have you been stressed lately?" Asuma asked, feeling her shoulders. "Your shoulders feel like they're in knots." "Stressful mission," Kurenai muttered, "it just felt too good." As they continued on, Anko cast a glance their way and smirked. Her little bonus mission of getting her best friend, the man she had a crush on, was working. But she soon returned to the very nice feeling of Kakashi's hands on her back. The lake. The kids were already having lots of fun in the water. Choji had started things off by making a cannonball into the water, getting everyone wet, which started a full-on water fight, ninja style that is. Naruto used a bit of his wind chakra training to make some nice wave. Others either swam under the water or ran on top of it. Shino was watching contentedly by the shade of a tree while Shikamaru had fallen asleep. Naruto at that moment was standing on the water as he took a break. A few were playing a game of water tag, and so far, it looked like Tenten was it, and was trying to tag either Ino or Hinata, who were the closest to her. Naruto had to admit that Hinata was very graceful on the water. He watched her as she moved out of the way of the girls as they played. She moved like a dancer really, and something was bothering him. He felt like he had seen this before, but he couldn't really place where he had seen it. He hadn't seen Hinata in a bathing suit for a few years, not that he could see why she was so shy about her appearance. He never really noticed that she was actually kind of pretty. His eyes went over her slender figure, and once again he felt that he knew that shape. This is nuts, why the hell am I checking out my best friend? Naruto thought to himself. I mean, okay, sure, she's grown a lot more than I thought. And I never knew she could move on the water like a dancer and... Wait. Naruto blinked a few times as he really looked at her movements. She was using some type of that gentle fist style to move about, and it really looked like dancing. Now he remembered he had seen this before. That night in Wave, when he saw that beautiful girl dancing naked in the moonlight, it was an image that had been haunting him. He still had dreams of that girl, and he really took a very close look at Hinata. It can't be, I mean. Naruto couldn't help but notice how the movements were too much like the girl he had seen, plus only a ninja could walk on water, and they had been the only ninja in the area. He hadn't thought it was one of the girls because he honestly didn't think they were a match. Sakura was nice, but her bust line wasn't as big as the girl he had seen, and her hair was too long. Hinata, he had never seen, thought a coat, and figured she was about the same as Sakura. But looking at Hinata now, he could see that she really did have one hell of a figure. That coat and pants really hide how she had bloomed over the past couple of years. Naruto couldn't deny it anymore, that girl he had seen had been Hinata. There wasn't a doubt anymore in his mind, which meant that the girl he had been dreaming about was Hinata. It also led to another thought. I saw Hinata-chan naked. The sudden gush of blood out of his nose and the shock made him lose concentration, and he fell into the water. Naruto sank down into the water as his mind tried to make sense of everything. The dream girl was in fact real, but it was his childhood friend, but he had to admit that she had grown up and was in fact a pretty girl. He never thought of her as a girl, more as his friend, so this left him feeling very confused. The fact he had seen her naked made him blush all over, and was thankful no one could see him down in the water. His mind quickly thought of all the times together, the laughter and the sad times, like when her mother had died. She had been a constant in his life, and then his mind brought him to that kiss. That accidental kiss on the roof while on that mission in Wave. His mask had been on, but thinking about that kiss left a feeling of butterflies in his stomach. Thousands of thoughts raged on in his mind, and it wasn't until his lungs burned for air that he swam up to the surface. Damn man, how long were you trying to hold your breath down there? Kiba asked him as he had seen his friend go under. You trying to learn to breath like a fish or something? I thought I saw something at the bottom, but it was nothing, Naruto told him. He saw Kiba shrug it off and went back to the shore. Naruto looked again at Hinata, and he felt a blush under his mask as he watched her laughing and playing with the others. She really is pretty, and she's really nice too. Damn it, she's my friend. But, oh man, I don't know what to think. Naruto felt so lost, but if there was anyone he could turn for help, it was his dad. Kakashi was by a tree trying to read one of his books, but his mind just kept going back to Anko, and the way her body felt under his hands. He knew that she was obviously flirting with him, but the reason was why she was doing it. Was she doing it just as friendly teasing? But then again, she hadn't really done anything like that before, so was she actually interested in him? He had known her for years, hell, she was practically part of the family in a weird way. Kakashi also had to admit he had never met a woman like her. She was a tomboy, rash, and had a very strange sense of humor. But he had fun with her, she was easy to get along with, and he remembered that day at her place when they had shared that one moment. Both their walls that they kept up came down for just an instant, and he had to admit it felt nice. Plus, there was the fact she was beautiful as well. He wasn't blind to that, especially in that little red number she was wearing. Her skin was so soft and warm that he didn't want to stop when she asked him to put on the suntan lotion. But would it be right to start something with her? What if things went wrong? Could they end up hating each other? And then what of Naruto? The kid loved her, that much was certain, and he knew that Anko felt the same about Naruto. To them they were like true family, and he didn't want to break it up. While he was thinking on what to do, it took him a moment to notice his son walking towards him. Kakashi focused his attention on him as Naruto didn't look like his normal self. In fact, the boy looked like something was bothering him. "Hey Dad, can I ask you something?" The tone that Naruto used told him this was serious, so Kakashi put his book down as he sat down. He patted the spot next to him, and Naruto silently sat down next to his adopted father. "So what's on your mind?" Kakashi asked him. Well, I'm not sure what to do about something. Naruto wasn't sure how to even start about his problem, so he'd just wing it. "You see, I think I'm starting to like a girl, but the problem was that she's a friend." "You mean like how you had a crush on Sakura for a bit?" "It's different this time," Naruto said in his defense. "I mean, with Sakura maybe it was just a crush, but we've become good friends since she's into Sasuke. But the thing is, it's harder this time. This time she's been a very good friend for a long time, and I'm scared I might screw that up. I mean, she's been there for so long, and what if I ask her out and she gets weirded out by it? Can it be that he's finally noticed Hinata?" Kakashi thought to himself, surprised. It wasn't hard for him to figure out who he was talking about, since Hinata was his oldest friend, plus he caught Naruto looking in the direction of Hinata just now for a split second. He mentally chuckled to himself at this turn of events. Everyone knew that Hinata had it bad for Naruto, with the exception of Naruto. The only reason he had stayed out of it was that he didn't want to meddle, but maybe a little push wouldn't hurt. "Well son, how do you know she doesn't like you back?" Kakashi asked him. "Do you see any signs?" "Signs?" "Usually, the girls in your books just throw themselves at the guys or say what they are thinking," Naruto said at him. Kakashi's sweat dropped. He really should have given him more talks about girls. Jiraiya may write great novels, but women rarely just up and admitted things, at least it wasn't normally done. The thing with Anko earlier was a prime example. Well, things don't work out like that in real life, at least not all the time, he started to explain to Naruto. "You see, some girls are actually very shy about certain things. Tell me, does she blush a lot or even faints around you?" If that doesn't clue him in, then I don't know what will, Kakashi mentally sighed. Naruto thought about it. Hinata did blush a lot when he was around. Plus she did seem to faint, and Kiba once said to him that she only seemed to do it around him. She had fainted when he had accidentally kissed her, so. Does that mean that Hinata likes me? Naruto never thought that his best friend would feel like that. He wasn't sure, but if his dad was right, then that meant that Hinata actually liked him. Kakashi saw Naruto was thinking about it, so he had a few more words for him. "Listen, I can't tell you what you want to do in this, it's your life. But just think about this for a moment. Do you have fun with this girl? When you're with her, do you feel more at ease and comfortable with her?" Kakashi looked slowly traveled to Anko, who was talking with Kurenai about something. "Does it seem that she's someone that you might actually like to date? Someone that you feel can understand you and even accept anything about you?" Naruto thought about that. Hinata did all of that and more. He thought about what it would be like to date her, and it just felt nice inside. "Thanks, Dad, I think I know what to do now." Naruto smiled as he got up to join the others. "I think I do too," Kakashi said, looking at Anko laugh with Kurenai. Later that day. It was hours later when it was time to get back. Everyone had a good time as everyone made their own ways home. Although Naruto asked to walk the Hyuga girls home, while Kakashi was okay with it as he moved off to Anko. Anko gave a curious look as Kakashi walked up beside her. "Mind some company?" he asked her. Nope. She smiled at him as they walked on. So, the squirt is taking Hinata and other girl home, huh? Kakashi nodded. I think he's going to try and ask her out. About damn time, Anko sighed as she saw how the young girl was smitten with Naruto. It also got me thinking as well, Kakashi said as if he was thinking out loud. I haven't been on a date in years. Oh? Anko smirked, got anyone in mind? Yeah, you think Kurenai would be up for it? Anko face faulted at that and turned her full fury on Kakashi. If that bastard got to look at her and touch her, and went after Kurenai, she was going to kick his ass. What did you say? Kakashi only chuckled, just kidding. I know she would say no and Asuma wouldn't talk to me again if I did. Anko crossed her arms and turned away from him. You know, you're kind of cute angry, Kakashi said walking up ahead leaving a stunned Anko behind him. It only took a moment for her to get over it and caught up to him. What did you say? I said I thought you were cute angry. Kakashi smiled at her. Anko felt a small blush, but fought it back. She wouldn't act like some teenager even though the sound of him saying she was cute made her feel giddy in her stomach. So what? What? Kakashi asked. Anko was losing her patience. You going to ask me out or what? Alright, tomorrow sound good for you? He asked. Yeah, and you better not wear ninja clothing, for all the teasing you're taking me out in style Hataki. Anko said to him holding her head up high. She wasn't letting him get off easy for teasing her like that. Kakashi only chuckled. Maybe this was going to be more fun than he thought. While that was going on, several blocks away Naruto was walking the Hyuga girls. Hanabi was very lively as she wanted to do something like that again sometime soon. Hinata smiled at seeing how happy her little sister was. She cast a look to Naruto, who seemed to be thinking about something, but whatever it was she wasn't sure. She wanted to ask him, but she didn't want to disturb whatever it was he was thinking of. At any rate, they soon arrived at the main Hyuga gate. Hey Hinata-chan, can I talk to you for a second? Naruto said, slightly nervous. Okay, Hanabi, why don't you check on Hakukuin for me? Hinata asked and her sister gave a curious look at them but nodded. Hakukuin? Naruto asked confused. T the rabbit, Hinata told him. Oh okay. I should tell Haku that in the letter I plan on writing to him. I bet he'll like that. Naruto smiled at her, and then he scratched the back of his head nervously. Hinata-chan, I was wondering if you were doing anything tomorrow afternoon? And no, why? Well, I was wondering if you wanted to go out tomorrow, with me? Naruto couldn't even look at her for a moment, too scared of what he might see. Hinata's eyes widened as her face started to feel warm. Is he asking me out on a date? Why, you mean like a date? Hinata asked, feeling so nervous that she might faint right there. Her heart was hammering in her chest. This was like a dream come true. First he took her first kiss and now this. She wanted to pinch herself to make sure she was awake. Well, yeah, Naruto admitted and waited for a replay. But Hinata was so shocked she couldn't get any words out and Naruto's hopes dropped. He figured that her silence meant that she didn't want to. He was surprised at how much it hurt. For a moment he was actually looking forward to a date with her for some reason. After a couple of minutes of silence was all Naruto could take. Well, you don't have to. I'm sorry I brought it up, and I don't want to ruin our friendship if that's what you feel. Oh no. He feels like I'm rejecting him. Say something, anything, please. Hinata screamed out in her mind. Well, I should get back to Dash. Yes. Hinata shouted out. Ha! Both Naruto and Hinata were surprised by that kind of outburst. Hinata turned even more red than ever, but she couldn't stop now. I'd love to. Really? Naruto said happily. Hinata nodded her head as she smiled. Great. I'll pick you up tomorrow at 4, okay? Naruto told her. Hinata just nodded again and Naruto smiled at her before running off. Hinata felt like she was floating as she realized she finally had a date with the boy she had been harboring feelings for so long. She walked back into the compound with a dreamy look on her face, making many clan members what had happened to get Hinata in such a state. She walked into her room and saw Hanabi there feeding Haku, but she didn't notice. She just fell back first onto her bed and sighed happily. Hanabi gave a confused look. What's going on? Naruto-kun asked me out. Hinata sighed happily again. Hanabi's face was full of surprise and a little disappointment. She and Konohamaru had plans already in place, and he said he got help from 2 other kids his own age as well. So what are you doing for it? Hinata wasn't sure, but then it dawned on her. She bolted up as she realized that she had a first date and wasn't sure what to even wear to it or what to even do on a date. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfictions. Looking forward to having you on board again.